work now. Hello.
Yes.
Classic IT fix. Turn it off and back on. All right. I think we're at quorum. Is that correct? I see.
Yes, I believe we have
Five of
five,
us.
so at least five.
All right. We'll go ahead and get started if that's all right. Jessica, do you have some rules of engagement and roll call for us?
I do. Good afternoon. A few housekeeping items for this hybrid meeting. It's being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you're not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled, and all chats will go directly to me as the host. Unless you're participating during the meeting, please turn your video off. This allows active meeting participants to be seen on screen. You will still be able to hear the meeting. When you're participating, please turn your video on. If you have any trouble, you can send us a chat. MPO reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. And now we'll proceed to roll call. Crick?
Here.
Bazicki? Cronin? DeVries?
Here.
Mathis?
Here.
Rodden? Voigt?
Here.
Weigel?
Here.
We have five, which is a quorum.
All right. Item B is public comment. I didn't see anything written. Do we have anybody in the room or anything else written?
There is no public online and no one physically present in the commission room.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to item C, approval of the September 5th minutes. Anyone has any comments or concerns about those minutes? Or if not, I'll accept a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Crick, seconded by Mathis. Roll call vote when you're ready.
Yes, thank you. Crick?
Aye.
Cronin? Roll call or voting on the minutes?
Oh, I approve.
Thank you. DeVries?
Aye.
Mathis?
Aye.
Rodden? Oh, I'm sorry, he wasn't here. Voigt?
Aye.
And Weigel?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously.
All right. We'll move into our regular agenda items. Item number 1 is a T2050 Amendment number 1. It's like we're just moving a project, Eudora, from unfunded into the fiscally constrained. Anything to present on this one, Jessica?
Nope, I'd be happy to entertain a conversation if you would like. This is similar, this is exactly the discussion we had last month of putting it out for public comment. We have now put it out for a public comment period and received no comments. And so we're back for your consideration to recommend approval to the MPO Policy Board to move the Church Street project from the illustrative list to the fiscally constrained list in T2050. And I'd entertain any conversation or discussion you'd like to have about that at this point in time.
I have a quick question. Does moving it to fiscally constrained just mean that we're saying now there's funding for it?
Yes, correct. So when we do our long-range transportation plan, we make projections about reasonably available federal funding. At the time, this $20 million project didn't have reasonably available federal funding until the award announcement from Federal Highways. And so now we're saying there's money available to complete this project, and so it can move to the fiscally constrained list.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts? Any motions for this item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Got a motion in a second. Ready for a roll call vote?
Yes. Crick?
Aye.
Cronin?
Aye.
DeVries?
Aye.
Mathis?
Aye.
Voigt?
Aye.
Weigel?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right. And I realized I didn't ask for public comment on that. Don't think we had anybody in the room or online still, but I guess in future items.
Thank
If
you
anyone else
for
is in the
clarifying.
room,
Yes, there was
at all.
there was no one in the room and or online that had indicated they wanted to, there's no public at the meeting.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on that as well.
Thank you.
So item 2 looks like a TIP Amendment number 4, also out for public comment, and did not receive any comment. So I got a short presentation on this.
Yeah, so I was just going to share the screen of the tip summary. This tip change is outside of our quarterly amendments, but was done in conjunction with the long-range plan amendment to add the church street connectivity and multimodal enhancements, $21 million. Additionally, when we did that call for projects, we collected additional edits that project sponsors would like to make. A majority of those were from new projects from Lawrence Transit on the list, and a new bridge repair project from KDOT as the project sponsor. So all of those were out for public comment, received no public comment, and so we're looking for a recommendation today to forward on to the MPO Policy Board for TIP Amendment number 4.
All right, and for the sake of the group, with all
Adam,
these
you don't
Lawrence
have enough
Transit
projects.
options, yeah. So this is capturing a lot of the access, innovation, and collaboration grant program through the state, won a number of awards, and just bringing that all into the TIP so we can move forward on those projects. But any other questions or discussion about this list? And I don't see public online for public comment. Anybody in the room for this item?
No, there's no one.
That'll open it up if there's a motion.
I move to recommend approving the 23 to 26 TIP Amendment number 4.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Crick,
Aye.
Cronin,
Aye.
DeVries,
Aye.
Mathis,
Aye.
Voigt,
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Right. Move to our final regular agenda item. Item number 3 is the 2024 safety target setting discussion item. So do we have anything to present on this, Jessica?
Yes, just give me 1 second. Okay. We are embarking on another year of safety performance targets, and this today is for your review and feedback, kind of to consult with you before I take this out for public comment to set our new targets per our public participation plan. We federally are required to set targets annually for these 5 safety measures, and so what I've put together for you is an update to this report to be able to show you what the 5-year rolling averages are, adding the new data points for annual fatalities throughout Douglas County. This information that we present of crashes on road maintained by was at request of this body to see where crashes are happening. And so we report one sum total number overall for the entire county. This measure is looking at number of fatalities on all public roads. And so we had 7 in 2022. We had 7 fatalities in Douglas County. That results in a 5-year rolling average of 10 fatalities. And as a result, we look at our trend for projection in our 2023 projection, how we've done this consistently in lieu of not having a safety action plan. And being able to really target some of those measures more specifically, I think, is to look at our historic trends and set a next year's expected crash number, and then look at what we would set a target for, which would leave our target at 10.4. And you can see how that is, which is a slight increase overall with having a a 6-year drop off and a 10-year added. And so with those rolling averages, it's really looking at about a trajectory of safety. So that's fatalities. We also recognize that while our region desires improved safety beyond the target at this point reflects our rolling averages based on historical trends. And so we believe that there's possibility to do additional work driving these numbers down with the work we're going to embark on with our Vision Zero Safety Action Plan. So we can have that conversation if we need to. Any questions about this measure, or would you like me to move on to the other 4?
Pause for the group. Any thoughts on this before we look at the others? Maybe we'll just let you show each of them, Jessica, and then we can come back to any of them.
Okay, that would be fine. On this one, if you look historically at what we reported, our numbers vary a little bit on some. I found an order of operation error in our Excel table, so I updated those based on kind of the result of that. And in one case, I had found we had reported something that was only mapped crashes instead of all crashes, so I had to update that. So if you look back historically, you may notice a few things. It was in the interest of clarifying and correcting a few things I had found. And back to the federal standards, which also require this to be reported out to the 100th and not the 10th, like we had done previously. So you'll see a little bit of variation in that from maybe what we've done before when I went back and consulted the federal guidance. In this instance, we're looking at the fatality instances before by a factor of the vehicle miles traveled for Douglas County, which comes out of the Kansas Department of Transportation model. As a result of that, the factor is based on not only the change in crashes, but the change in VMT. And so, and then we look at a trajectory of that VMT out in our travel demand model as we make a projection about at what rate we've been experiencing crashes per VMT and based on a future projected rate of VMT where we anticipate we would be. Our fatality rate per 100 million VMT is at 69 hundredths. And you can see based on where we project that with VMT in a future year, our 2023 number would be closer to 95 hundredths, which would leave us at a 1 in 5 hundredths target in the 2024 year. And so you can see overall, as we anticipate VMT to increase based on our 2050 out year for travel demand modeling divided by the number of years between now and then in a linear increase, that's where we would anticipate both the VMT and crash histories to be on those trends. We go to number of serious injuries, and you can see here we've had a reduction over time, and we are in this space of trying to figure out, I think, if there's going to be an increase or not. The 2022 numbers were down from 2021, which leaves us at 28.4 as the 5-year rolling average, with a projected 29 serious injuries in 2023. That leaves us at a 2024 target of 30 for the 5-year target. We do the same factor of serious injuries per 100 million VMT, and you can see here that at our current factor of 2.77, that is the 5-year average is lower than the single year rate, and there is some slight growth again in some of that projection of where we think we have been based on some of that movement of crashes. We're losing some of these, we'll lose some of these lower year numbers to some of this higher year number in averages, and so that leaves us with a projection of 2 and 95 100ths to a factor of 3 for the 2024 target. The final measure that we have for safety is number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So the numbers before that we looked at with fatalities and serious injuries include all users. This is pulling out the non-motorized users separately to be able to look at what's happening. We have a rolling average after 2022 of 4.4, which is a reduction from 5.4. Based on that trend, we see our projected value to be 4.5. We can, on the other one, I think I moved this to a whole number. I think I just didn't catch this here. We can move that to a whole number if we wish. That leaves our target average here, recognizing we can't have a partial injury of a person, but that's a trend, and so that leaves our target at 5, which keeps us about in the same range overall as we look at where we've been in our 5-year projection. You can see reduction when we lost this year where we had 10, going to some lower numbers in some following years. There's a lot of factors that obviously impact this, and as we do our continued work with the state of Kansas on the vulnerable road users assessment and future implementation of that, and Safe Streets and Roads for All, I hope that we'll be able to dive into more specific geographies in relationship to some of these crash measures to continue to work like we have in the region with, like we profiled in T2050 with the county and the city doing highway safety improvement projects and other safety improvement and crash reduction countermeasures. So that's where we believe we are based on our current trends and the projections that we've seen, and I would entertain any additional conversation you may have about these and feedback you would have before we publish these for a public comment period and future consideration of approval of these 2024 targets.
Any questions, discussion from the group on these measures?
Is there some number that helps us understand where we are against like an average for places of a similar size and population, or is that just as a point of wondering, not because I think it needs to be changed or added to this in any way?
I think that would be a great analysis to do. It may be something we can understand greater when we do some of the safety comparisons. I know when we looked at our safety numbers across the state, there was some initial concern, when we were thinking about Safe Streets and Roads for All, because many of our factors are not as severe as other locations, even in Kansas and across the country. Obviously, the federal process was really trying to create a standard methodology so we could start to compare that. We have not to date done that work or made space to do that work. That may be something we are able to explore more in the safety work that we work on under Safe Streets and Roads for All.
Oh, it's really interesting to see how low those numbers are.
I just had a question about public comment. This is a pretty mathematical exercise, kind of looking at how the targets will shake out. And of course, we've got, like you mentioned, a few of the different ways, different programs that can be used to target improving safety at certain intersections or streets or what have you, where we see crashes. Have we gotten much feedback or productive feedback through this process that kind of points us in a direction that's different than us just doing these 5-year rolling averages, or just kind of interested in public comment?
Thank you for that question, Adam. I think this goes back to the public comment period process. I do not believe is required. However, when we are setting these targets, we are replacing targets in T2050 that did have a public process. And so it's always been clear to me that in the process of setting this in the interest of transparency of the work that we're doing and the story that we're telling, that there is an opportunity for public comment. We have not to date gotten that comment. In the future, if there's additional thought about that process, we can always go back and evaluate that as part of our public participation plan, of finding the right balance of opportunity for the public to comment on things that are both technical but also matter in terms of driving policy discussion. I think at this point we have taken a process that has looked at historical measures because we haven't driven a conversation maybe as strongly as we could if we were an MPO that had set aside money to fund projects where we wanted to drive targets. And so I think it's about balancing both our goals and the reality of our situation and providing those opportunities. If that's something we need to talk about in the future, we can continue to do that to find the appropriateness of opportunity for public comment. There has also always been this conversation about setting what happens if you do or don't meet your targets. And at this point, there is the conversation that we could choose in our region to not set our own targets. We could choose to adopt statewide targets. And previous discussion has led us down the course to adopt our own targets and data that will drive more conversation and be more useful in terms of, that's why we've added the who maintains the road on each of these in factors, so we can really start, I think, begin that process to understand where we can begin to address countermeasures that improve safety outcomes for all users. But we could also decide not to do that. We could adopt state targets and commit as an MPO to working towards state targets. This goes back a little bit to, as we look at our numbers compared to other places in the state, we fare, I believe, just from my overall anecdotal, look, we fare reasonably well in terms of we have population and we have VMT, which obviously, and, thinking about, the college and the age of our transportation users in our region, we fare pretty well. Obviously, there's additional work we can do. I think anybody would say one fatality is too many, and so we believe there's additional work that can be done in terms of safety, but it's a balance of finding the appropriate place in the process to drive that conversation. And this is kind of where we've ended up so far. If anybody has any thoughts about that, that's just me kind of sharing the history for those of you that haven't been involved in some of those previous discussions about where we've ended up and why.
Yeah, I think the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan will have a lot of that'll be, I imagine, a very rich public engagement period that makes a ton of sense, even if this is pretty technical and mathematical, for people to still be made aware that something is changing on a process that went through that. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I would just, as we walk through this, and this is my third time through it, and it's starting to sink in, so as I understand more and more the mathematical nature of it, just setting expectations, I guess, when people engage with us. And in this case, it's right now, at least, before some of these other more, like you say, kind of driving action processes happen. This is doing our best to keep people informed about changes.
And I will add in that sense, our commitment in the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan is our commitment to zero. We will be setting that functional target of zero when we get to that place, and really hopefully driving and identifying countermeasures for implementation that can help us achieve that through a set of targeted reductions in fatalities and serious injuries. And so we have already, with this, with the city's commitment, City of Lawrence's commitment to apply for that grant to do that project, we will be on a trajectory to do that. So the conversation next year, I would anticipate, would be very different in regard to this work after we've had an opportunity to create space in a public process and with our stakeholders to very publicly have serious conversations about safety.
Great, thank you for that. Any other thoughts, questions from TAC members? Don't believe I see anyone online. Is there anybody in the room for public comment?
There is no one in person.
Okay. With that, I will be looking for a motion. I guess this was just a discussion item. Do we not have a motion on this, I suppose?
I think any feedback, if you had something you wanted me to change or do, we would do that in that way. I think you can receive it and we can release it and your action comes at the following meeting.
Okay. So one more brief call. Anybody have any further direction regarding this item? All right, so with that, we'll move on to item E, quick updates. Looks like UPWP.
Yeah, just for your information, our UPWP is out for public comment. It got posted began on September 29th and will end on October 28th. And so that will be something you'll see for your consideration in November. Additionally, besides safety targets, I also would mention that I have a 2023 UPWP amendment in process that I am working through and will be putting out for public comment also for your consideration in November. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions about those items, I'd be happy to entertain conversation.
Any thoughts from the group on those? All right. Don't see any other business. Looks like we have our next meeting on November 7th or another date if we need to. With that, I think we are adjourned.
I'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.